So welcome to Small Things Brought Together. My name is Robin Love, and this is the first episode of a new season, season 3. So to take the opportunity to reintroduce the series, Small Things Brought Together started really as a way of encouraging people to explore their own creative process. And the title really comes from this idea that we don't need to know everything at once. We can take a small step and see what happens, and then take the small step, and then somehow from that, everything comes together. And that was the beginning of it. And then after about a year of doing episodes that were more instructional, then I shifted to talking to artists about their creative process, which turned out for season 2 to be, in my opinion, a very um, rich and delightful way of exploring this topic of what is the creative process and how do people engage with it. And so I had the great good fortune of talking to 10 artists about their process, and I believe some amazing conversations resulted. And so I am, again, thoroughly delighted to start season 3 with artist Nava Waxman. So just as in season 2, I will let Nava really introduce herself, but just to, as my way of introduction, I believe I learned of Nava through actually someone who I talked to in season 2.
What a nice surprise.
Yeah, a woman, she lives in Nashville, named Celeste Green.
Mm.
And she's a fan of your work, and she brought your work up in our conversation. And I was like, well, let me check this out.
So
And
nice.
yeah, like, how do we come to things in this world of ours these days? So then I found you on Instagram, and it was like, wow, something's going on over here. So became a very eager follower of your work and appreciator of your work. So I'm delighted that you have agreed to be part of this series. And so, Nava, what would you like people to know about you, and by way of introduction?
First of all, I wanted to say thank you so much for having me. And I'm really grateful for our ongoing dialogue that we've been engaged with in the past several months. It's also for me such a pleasure to follow your creations and your work and your practice and your process. And really, I'm really grateful for this connection and exchange. And well, my name is Nava. I'm an artist. I still have a kind of a difficulty to kind of define what kind of an artist, whether I'm a visual artist or multidisciplinary artist or interdisciplinary artist. But I would say that I am an artist, that I work with various media. I work with drawing, painting, objects, performance, dance, choreography. And I live and work in Toronto. And my work is kind of in a general way of putting it, I would say that it's an ongoing investigation and exploration of the transitory nature of gestures, all kind of gestures, and they're manifolded through a historical, cultural context, um, and yeah,
Well,
that's kind of a short.
yes. Yeah. Um, I mean, I know I had read, the idea of the transitory nature of the gesture, which I think have been thinking about a lot since I first read your writing about that. And as we have in our conversations, I think I've shared that I also study yoga, and I'm really interested in the texts of yoga. And one thing that many texts of yoga, not just the Yoga Sutra, but including the Yoga Sutra, starts with the word atha, the Sanskrit word atha. A-T-H-A. And it means now. And in a lot of ways, you could say it sums up the whole teaching that follows that word, you know, and it's like now, like pay attention right now, you know, to what's coming and what's happening right now. And so when you first said that about the transitory nature of gesture, in my mind, I heard ata, now, you know. But I want to hear you say more about that. I would love to hear more about how would you unpack that sentence?
Mm. There's a helicopter crossing the sky now. So this is now. I like how you I like this idea. I like the fact that this sentence brought you to think about now and about the moment, about what's happening in this particular moment, and how whatever happens in this particular moment can be translated into something sometime in the future. And if there is a document of the moment, of the real and now, that happens now, that comes into the present moment later on, how much this document can inform the now. I think a lot about artists who, in their ongoing process of working and developing, and there's lots of moments of isolation, regardless the pandemic. Artists usually work in the solitude of their studio, and they are surrounded and immersed with so many things, so many dimensions, and so many thoughts and ideas, and in the process of creating something in the studio, there's all kind of things that happens, a kind of a performative gesture, or that it's a gesture of the moment that not always can be seen or recognized within the final work, whatever the work would be. So this is a way to think about gestures. For me, I think I began developing this idea of the transitory nature of gestures. And I would say that this is still ongoing exploration, investigation, meaning that even though I might able to kind of articulate a little bit more and unpack, but I still don't know so much about it. This is kind of an ongoing. But I think I began contemplating and delving into this idea of the gestures when at the beginning of my career as an artist, because I was trained as a painter, and I've been working with drawing. And at some point, about 10 years ago, I realized that I am interested in transitioning and moving into performance, and work with time-based media, and work with improvisation, and start to do some sort of experiments that are deviating from the traditional method of working with painting and drawing. I wanted to, even though within painting and drawing, I was exploring the body, the gestures in the body, but it still was very tangible, result of gestures that are imposed on surfaces, inscribed on paper, on canvas. And when I began to start exploring more performativity and performance, and I started to a kind of a journey toward, and it was a kind of a period that I've been and completely engaged with experimentations, asking questions and exploring how can I answer these questions. And I ended up making a beautiful progress, but I didn't have any tangible objects, any tangible art that came out of it. My work became more and more ephemeral, more and more temporary. And that's where I started to think about gestures, the body gestures, as opposed to painted gestures, the dance gestures, as opposed to drawing or sculpting, and the ephemeral nature of body gesture, as opposed to paint or materials or fabric that you can really see. So that's where I started to delve into the materiality, the invisibility of gestures. And then later on, when I began to kind of think about the concept of liminality, and the idea of liminal subject, and to think about the experience of being in between, of experiences of migration, of displacement, movement and migration. That's where I started to think about the transitory nature of gestures, and how gestures, not only within artistic practices, but also within our subjective experience or emotions, how gestures migrate from one place to another. And slowly my gestures, my gestures that I'm creating or exploring or bringing through my work, they became transitory, because there was all the borders between different media became so elusive. So there was no painting, and there's no drawing, and there's no dance or performance. Everything started kind of a move from one place. So I would do a drawing, a life-size gestural drawing on my studio wall, and then I will record it in a performative action, and then transform the materials into a moving image. And so that's how gestures became transitory within my work. And then I realized that I guess in terms of material or the aesthetic, that's something that I'm seeking to look at, this aesthetic of displacement, of transition, of migration, of not something that just happened and it's immediate and it's there, but rather it goes from one place to another. And in this journey, it goes through some sort of a transformation of leaving things behind and gaining things. And this noticing it is something that I guess this is maybe the visuals or visual expressions that I'm drawn to.
Yeah. Oh my God. I have so many thoughts and questions. That's so good. One is maybe it's not the biggest question, but just for a little bit of clarity's sake, when I feel like you really filled out that the idea of gesture and what the potential of that could be, and at first I was like, oh, do you mean like movement, like a physical movement? But like hearing you talk, I feel like, oh, it's beyond that. Like gesture suggests something else. So maybe there's a little more to say about like what movement, gesture is. Are they the same? Are they different? But when you're talking, I'm like, okay, so you were not born and raised in Canada, so you're an immigrant to Canada.
It's true. I'm an immigrant to Canada. My parents were born in Morocco, in the Atlas Mountains in the Sahara Desert. They were born in a very tiny little Berber villages, and in early 50s, they had to flee Morocco because they were Jews, and the situation there for the Jews wasn't so good. So they had to flee overnight. So they left Morocco in mid 50s, and they had to travel to different countries and different temporary camps. They were in Cyprus, they were in Italy, and eventually they arrived to Israel, and they lived in a very small immigrant town south of Israel, at the Negev Desert. And so I was born here, but even though I was born here in Israel and I went to school and I speak Hebrew, I grew up in a very small village that everyone's was North African immigrants. So I grew up in kind of in two different cultures, in which at home it was an Arabic culture, and at school it was a Hebrew culture. So I've always been living in between these two worlds. And then later on, I became an immigrant, and I also became a mother. And so it was also interesting, this cycle of experiencing the experience of migration and displacement through my children, and connected to my experience as a child.
Mm, mm. And when you were also talking earlier, I mean, thinking about the liminality and how much that is interwoven with your life, from birth, really, and into your current state, your current moment. Um, but also, I'm not sure I had really spent any time ever thinking about how, being in North America. So I was born in the US and grew up in the US. I'm also an immigrant to Canada. uh, which most people will say, yeah, whatever. But actually, it's kind of a bigger deal than you
Mm-hmm.
think. But because North America, was colonized, so sort of completely in a way,
Mm-hmm.
not completely, but certainly quite thoroughly, uh, I never thought about the idea that gesture, what do immigrants bring in terms into the culture? I think about like, oh yeah, food and dress and even language, it becomes that melting pot and we're all, absorbing it. But I never thought about like, oh, what about gesture? What about movements?
Mm-hmm.
Come and within their culture, there are, I mean, you know, when you go to Italy, you see particular gestures. I go to India,
Mm-hmm.
people, gesture.
That's right.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely. And we can also think about gestures, um, inward migration of gestures. If you think about, let's go to kind of the physicality of the body. Um, the simple example would be, let's say someone goes through a trauma, experience of a trauma, or become disabled in a certain way with their body. And so they tend to walk in a certain way, and this, or the body behave in a certain way in a repetition for a long time. And that can actually create what's called bone deformation. A bone
Mm,
deformation can be considered the inscription of inward gesture.
mm,
Um, um, Other ways to think about gestures that migrate is, if you think about trauma, for example, trauma can pass through generations. Unconsciously, you can carry trauma of your ancestors. Um, And so we carry with us in a certain way within our body inscriptions of certain gestures that comes over generations without even knowing. So this is another way to think about gestures, migration of gestures. If we think about the dance world, if we think about a relationship between choreographer and dancers, um, if we think about a dance work that comes from uh, the dancer's own subjective world as opposed to being um, choreographed or being come with a score by a choreographer who might impose certain ideologies, certain expressions of the body on a different body that comes from a different culture, and how this body react to it. So that's in a way that's kind of the fluidity of 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 gestures that can happen in between. And I also wanted to say that, all of us, even though like it seems like, oh, you were an immigrant from the United States to Canada, and it's kind of a short, but we all carry this experience of migration. Some of us in a more profound way. Some of us had the fortunate to have kind of a smooth transition from one place to another. Some of us doing it by choice. Some of us doing it because we escape. Some people escape for their lives. They really wanted to survive. There's so many, and when we think about liminality, is that this is a liminal subjectivity. This is something that we develop because we never belong to one place. We can relate. Canada is my home, but some way it's not fully my home. Israel is my home, but it's not fully. But Morocco is also a place that I belong to, but in what way? So we all carry different places. So the liminal is like being in multiple places at the same time, not here, not there. So yeah, I think this is something that everyone can relate.
Yeah, I mean, I think that makes me think about and be curious to hear your experiences, having, um, well, part of the reason why I'm in Newfoundland is my mom's family's from Newfoundland. And the first time I came here, I was in my 30s. And I just like stepped on the ground and was like, home. This is home.
Hmm.
Like in my bones, I feel home. And and I feel like I have had that experience only in one other place, and it wasn't in the United States. Actually, when I go to my childhood home, I don't feel like at all. I feel like a stranger, really.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, what you're saying, like about like we carry from our ancestors, and then I think it arises at like unexpected moments too, in unpredictable ways. And in that way, like I wonder, I mean, are we sort of, is everyone, whether you never left your hometown, is it possible that you're having these experiences of feeling, I don't know, because I feel like my life has been very much kind of like searching, a little bit of a searching for that feeling
Mm.
of like,
Um, I had the same experience when I arrived to Canada in 2019. I decided to do research and go and find the houses of my parents they've never returned back to Morocco since they left. And I did some research, and um, and I arrived to Morocco in September 2019, and I drove to the Sahara Desert, and somehow I arrived to their villages, and I found the ruins
mm,
of their homes. But when I arrived to Canada, to Morocco, I felt the same. I felt, wow, I've never been here, but I know this place. This experience of residue, of,
mm,
um, and I really felt this place that I've been there. So it's I can relate to your experience. When it comes to think about people, humans who are never left their hometown and always been in one place, um, it makes me think about, uh, is it possible even like in our current time to think that we're in one place? Uh, I feel like with all this complexity of all the virtual and the digital and the technology, it's not like 100 years of solitude. You probably know this um, book, you know, in time when really there's nothing around you. You are really in the moment, fully in the moment. I don't think it's possible. I think our being is constantly migrating
Mm,
from one place to another,
mm,
constantly,
mm,
ongoingly, with no rest. So
mm.
um,
Oh, I'm getting like a chill here
it's,
when you say that.
and so I think when it comes to migration of gestures, if we think about gestures in a broader perspective, uh, I would say that yes, because we are other gestures is been migrating toward our screens and our digitals, and we passing it along, and there's such a there's such a um, inflation of mediation, um, that that I think that even if someone who never left their hometown, never left home, they are experiencing of traveling in a certain way to multiple places at the same time.
Well, this sort of calls to mind one of your projects, and maybe this is a good entree into one of them, is your work with Indigenous youth in Northern Ontario, isn't it?
In Ontario, yeah.
Uh, Yeah, I mean, I was thinking about like TikTok when you were talking. I don't know. Will you say a little about that project? If there's, I don't know if that's on your website or you have images maybe you want to
Oh,
share.
I have images I can share.
Um, um,
I haven't, you see, that's the thing we talked about the website. I don't have the time to go. Like
yeah.
I should go and put some materials. I just don't know how to put it yet, but I would love to share about this project that I'm so honored and privileged uh, that I had this opportunity to do it. And this project is initiated by Ryerson University, the Indigenous Research faculty in Ryerson University, and with Buffy St. Marie. Um, and in this project aims to help Indigenous youth that lives in different territories in Ontario, who's interested in pursuing a career in the arts, and they don't have experience with art, but this project is to help them to develop their creative spirit, to find the things that they like, in aim to create a portfolio, and then hopefully to submit the portfolio, to apply to school, um, and to go to study. Um, and so in this project, we are a group of artists, different backgrounds, musicians, um, theater, visual arts, performance, dance. And what we do is we bring a kind of a ring of support to this group of youth. What was interesting in this project is that this project is started in the midst of the pandemic,
Mm.
and we are in a situation of how can we mentor and help students through the virtual, to study art, to drawing, painting, and so on. The aim of this project at the end is that each youth are producing, some of them working with a group, producing a video work that they can bring into the video work, all kind of expressions, working with animation and drawing and the camera and so on. And And for me, at the beginning, it was really inspiring on so many levels, but particularly because within my research and my practice, I'm constantly thinking about how can we make the borders between media more and more elusive, how we can open up and try to enter into this in-between media to explore these liminal spaces, liminal space, to see what kind of new expressions can come. And so that was really interesting because we had to do everything through the virtual. So we've been working with drawing and painting and animation um, and, uh, and video and performance, and literally um, taking the liberty to to not think about any way that's supposed to do art by the book, but rather just like explore. And it was really, really, really wonderful. This was wonderful experience for me as well. Also on a personal level, because I think that the best way to get knowledge and educate yourself about Indigenous uh, uh, studies is to work with children or anything. But when you work with children, you learn so much from them. And I have been going through a really the most beautiful journey with them, in which I think I received so much from them, more than I could ever give them, by learning, by open up and and um, and having this safe space to share and share vulnerability and feel comfortable to explore. And um, yeah, and it was wonderful. It was really, really great. We produced several video works, and I think it's going to be screened in September. And they learned so much. I know that they learned a lot of things that they will take with them. Um, I I don't know if I can show you some materials, because I think I need to get the permission from
Right. Yeah.
my group to show. But however, there is an article about this project that came out last week, and I'll be happy to share with you. And in this article, they put some images.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So usually in the description, when this gets uploaded, I'll put a link to the article, and then people can look at that. So then that's great. Yeah. And then keep their eyes peeled for September.
Yeah, and it was really great because they were youth that at the beginning they didn't even wanted to see to look at the camera. This could be very brings lots of anxiety. This frame. How can we connect with strangers? How can we consider intimacy? How can we can bring intimacy within this setting? But slowly and gradually, when we're playing with improvisation and screens and not thinking about the outcome of anything, just exploring, it was kind of slowly they open up, and it was really such an inspiring project.
Yeah. Yeah. So I really, well, because you did share with me one thing separately, I was so impressed, and so like, whoa, they went from like not even having their camera on to amazing.
Also, we couldn't even record, like we couldn't even like do photo shooting. If it wasn't the pandemic, we would probably get together and work together. So we did all kind of things. We've been recording segments for the video from their basement, using the Zoom, putting a green screens within, like a digital green screens, and doing all kind of things in a way that it was really, really inspiring and magical, to the point where even these kind of like unexpected glitches became so powerful. Yeah.
I have to say though, part of me thinks about, and I do want to actually talk about your work, so just so you know, but part of my heart sinks a little when I think about like that magic and that sort of like the way that you know, a teenager has no no boundary about what's possible, so they just try anything and everything, and that's like the total magic of it. And then to think, do they need to go to some institutional art education program? You know, what happens there? What happens there?
Hmm.
I don't know. Some mixed feelings about that.
I, yeah, I think about it a lot, definitely, and I think that in a broader perspective, I think the academic in general, I think going through a rite of passage, going
Mm.
through a transformation, because
Mm.
because this pandemic really changed everything. So it's not just changing the setting of the academic, how we go to study, but also the context,
Mm.
the theories, the methods, everything needs to be adapted. So I think this is a time of reflection, and I mean, if I think about, the visual arts faculties or art faculties, I mean, there's so many things that are happening right now that we need to reflect on, and but I think sometimes, the academic world tend to bring people, like oppress people, make them fit into a certain thing, and it can be very tricky.
Yeah.
So it's, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. It just makes me think like that they get a chance to choose their identity rather than be told they are this identity.
Mhm.
Now you're
What
this.
is identity?
Yeah.
What is subjectivity?
That's our second episode, okay? Yeah. Yeah. Ata. Now.
Ata.
All
Thank you
right.
for reminding me.
I'm gonna share screen and we're gonna just so I'll call up your website and
Mhm.
where oh, hold on one second, as usual. Wait. Just see if I can do this. Oops. All right. Oh, I think. All right, let's see. Sorry.
Oh, no worries.
Usually I make this little slideshow, but then I thought, oh no, you have all these wonderful videos. Here we
It's
go.
all good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's all right. So every time I try to do something a little different, I learn something new. So shall we do the first? Which work would you like to look at?
Oh, I go with you. I follow with you. I enjoy this. I enjoy you taking me with you.
Okay. Well, I feel like this one really speaks to what you were talking about regarding how do you even know where the boundary is between performance, drawing, video, installation. It just seems like when you said that, I was like, oh yes, having looked through all the work and being like, okay, are you a dancer? Are you a performer? Are you a painter? Do you drawing? Do you make sculpture? Like what? And just even having the experience, obviously I haven't seen these works in person, but to enter them through the digital realm and have that experience of not knowing, and this is maybe our human tendency of like wanting to land and like kind of put like know what you are, you know? And
Mm.
then there's sort of no place to land within, you know? So it's like even digitally, I have the feeling of like a kind of fluidity entering the work, and which to me is like the best experience, because it's actually then I'm actually having the experience rather than just like looking at something. I'm actually having the experience of this question,
Mhm.
you know, that you're exploring. Doesn't want to show that one.
Yeah, this is a video. Yeah, we can see, we can so I can say something about this. Oh,
Oh,
what's
hold
happening here?
on. Should I go back, or is this a
Yeah,
different work?
I think it's a go to variations on broken lines.
Yeah,
I have a problem here. Click
yeah.
on it.
There. I think I just. Whoa! Why is that happening?
No, I made a mistake. This is my, you see my, okay, my,
All right.
it-
I'll go to the
good that
second.
I noticed it. So
Well, I don't know. I'll be
where
honest.
is the video?
For whatever reason,
Okay, so,
what happens here?
no,
Okay. This is the second
this is
image.
just an images,
Yeah.
but what
I,
I can do is if I can share screen my video, my screen, I can show this video because I really wanted to show this video.
okay.
And I just realized that I connected it to the wrong link. Oh boy.
All right. So I'll stop my share, and you should have the ability to share.
Okay, let's see. Okay, good. Okay, here we are. I'm glad I noticed it. So now I can change it. So this is a video documentation of my installation Variations on Broken Lines. It was in September 2020, and unfortunately, because of the pandemic, no one could come and see the installation. So
Nava, is there audio?
oh yeah, there is audio. It's because of the headsets. I should have taken. Yeah, so it's a very repetitive sound. This is in this instance it's a multi-channel projection in which there is two projectors in space, and then there is a holographic panel that is hanging from the ceiling, in which the projection is passing through and onto the walls, onto objects, and it's the projectors is screening a continuous screen dance works. That's why it's called Variations on Broken Lines. There were 12 different screen dance works. Each of them is um, approximately about 4 minutes, 5 minutes each, and there are projected from both projectors continuously in a loop and changing constantly in space. These are panels, wooden panels with marks and gestures. And Yeah, to your question, yes, this installation is bringing together drawing, painting, movement, all the visuals that you see projected on the walls, and the objects are drawings that has been done specifically for projections. So I've been drawing in small scale and scanning them, inverting them into light, and then bring them into life size. And there's all kind of objects. There's this Mobius. It looks like it's a plastic with a monitor and a mirror that's reflecting the video. And there's all kind of objects in space, and the holographic panel that is hanging from the ceiling is some sort of a dancer, because you know how if you share the website, I can show you in the image. Um, the You know how when we hang mobiles, the mobile is like it's on one string, so it's
Mhm.
panel here. So it's loose, so it's always rotating, and even like a slightly movement of body in space can move. Yeah, and so
Mm.
every time it moved, it showed the projection in it from different angle. So it really depend on where you are in space. So I like this idea because I felt that this is something I can control of, and um, I wanted to have an element in the installation that I can control, and that was this panel that constantly brought different visuals that you could observe in relation to the body, although no one had the chance to experience. But
Mm. I mean, how do you feel about that, you know?
perhaps I would say a little bit about this installation, and I would say that it is informed by 2.5 years of research, practice-based research at York University. And in this research, I was interested to um, uh, explore and investigate the various relationships between uh, performance or event and its document, um, and as well as how notions of liminality comes into expression within identity and artistic practices. And I went through a very interesting journey in which I began encountering several artistic practices of female artists that from um, from the 30s to the 70s that I admire, and I recognize them as liminal subject. They are choreographers and dancers that also work in between media, working with body and working with visuals. And I started to encounter their archives. And in some cases, I discovered that there's like especially two artists. One of them is Gertrude Kraus, that I wanted to find their archives. I couldn't find. There is no recording of their important historical works, and that made me think a lot about ideas of reconstruction, reenaction, translation, um, adaptation. I'm using all kind of terms that we are using when we think about using documentation or archive materials into artwork, or bringing it into the present moment, and how much these documents can inform the present moment of that work, or inform the artist. Um, and so this installation is about uh, bringing movement materials from the archive, also from my archive, and from 10 years, 15 years old archive that I of performance that I created solely for the camera, and bring them and translate them into a visual experience. And what I wanted to do it, what I was interested to create is to create a kind of a place out of space in which when the audience or the viewers enter into that space, they feel that that there is a dance happening live right now, that there is a dance that will never be repeated, because the live moment is irrepeatable. We can construct the materials, we can do different kind of works, but we can't bring the authentic live moment. And so I wanted to create kind of a new experience of space-time and live moment that informs by these materials. So it was really, really completely weird that I couldn't bring, audience couldn't experience it. So I had to mediate what is already been mediated. Because the whole installation was about various, like, mediation, to mediate a moment and bring it as if you feel this kind of a simultaneity of being in multiple places at the same time. But because of the restrictions of COVID, I had to mediate the performance. So to your question, in one hand, I was a bit disappointed, because I wanted to celebrate this work with friends and family. But at the same time, in the most strange way, I found this situation inspiring. So it became a material or a subject of investigation for me. So I wanted to go through this feeling of being there on my own, of like I'm the only spectator of this live dance that happened in the moment. It might not be the most glorious way, but it was very interesting, because it invoked lots of questions and lots of contemplations that became subjects for me to continue ongoingly to investigate these notions of real space-time, and how notions of real space-time radically shifted in this time of mediation. We think about different way of thinking about live moment. What is live moment? So yeah, but I'm excited that the project got accepted to Nuit Blanche in Toronto.
Oh,
so it's going to be, thank you. So it's going to be shown in Nuit Blanche in 2022.
Good. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. So you'll actually, in that funny way where things that seem bad end up, offering opportunity, like you will have had that experience of like, okay, you were the solo spectator and creator, and now you'll have that other experience too, where people interact. And
yeah, and it also was a site-specific work, because many of the movement materials in this installation has been recorded in Gail's gallery, in this gallery. So throughout my research at York University, I utilized this space as a space for performance. So I've been working collaboratively with several dancers, and we've been meeting in the space and recording performance in reiterations. And so these materials that has been recorded in this state has been re-choreographed into a screen dance work, and has returned back to that place to be shown. So this connection of the live moment that of a performance that was intimate, and it was an intimate, ritualistic moment with other female dancers that we shared together. But to bring these materials into the installation in a different time was something that was very, very important to me. And so, like my committee offered me if I wanted to skip, I don't have to do it, no, considering that I won't be able to have audience, but I wanted to do it because I wanted to honor these materials that was supposed to be shown in this space. There was a connection.
Mm, mm.
So I was willing to go through the whole process of bringing the materials, and there was no one allowed to help me to bring all the panels and the work and
Oh my God.
but I was very familiar. I lived in this place for a long time, so I was very familiar with the spatial qualities of that particular space. So it was really, was a very interesting experience in solitude for
Mm,
me.
mm. I mean, what you just said about like that it happened live and then was recorded and then sort of translated back into the space in this other format. And I mean, I feel like it's just like everything you have just said previously, like I hear the echo of it in what you're offering here, about um yeah, the gesture getting translated and adapted and yeah, yeah. So mm,
Yeah, it's a it's a really good example that connect to our beginning of our conversation when we
yeah.
talking about the migration of gestures. Yeah, literally these beautiful gestures of our performances
Mm,
migrated to the screen, and some of them became. If I go back, if you saw the in the video, there was yeah. I'm going to show the video again. Uh,
yeah,
Maybe you can move more images here so we can see it, and
yeah.
yeah, you can click here a little bit more. Let's see another one.
Oops, let me get to
Yeah,
you.
this one, for
Okay,
example.
okay.
This image it's a still from video um, of the Mobius, and it has been recorded in Gail's gallery. So, yeah, you see this image, and if you that is a part of that moving image in this video sculpture on the floor. There's a video sculpture that you saw, like. Um, and so this video sculpture, yes, it's screening the video work, and this video work has been recorded in this place. Uh,
Mm, mm-hmm.
Now
And
I'm not
it's like,
expecting I'm not expecting the audience to know that this like it's not the that it's I don't know I mean it's hard to put all these details into like an inscription, but it's very much um, an important aspect of the work.
in a previous conversation, actually, the last one I did, it was with a woman who she calls herself an experienced designer, and she works with technology and serious games, meaning like games that say the medical world uses to teach doctors. And so they're games, but they're like their purpose is like serious.
Yeah, yeah.
And she does things with meditation and virtual reality, which in the course of the conversation were kind of funny because it was like using virtual reality to help people connect to their actual reality. It's kind of a funny thing, but apparently quite effective, actually. So anyway, one of the part of the conversation, she's very interested in creator experience and user experience.
Oh, okay.
And truthfully, I don't know that I ever thought about art making with those two things like delineated. But as you were talking, this conversation is coming back to me in terms of like user experience and creator experience. And
Mm.
in this piece, although it sounds like you had an idea of what the user experience might be, and then you were kind of denied that. denied might be a funny word to use, but like
Mhm.
COVID didn't allow that to happen. And so the user experience in some ways became your creator, like you became user and creator. And
Yeah, which was really weird.
yeah, yeah.
It was weird. And I was there and I was almost in tears in the installation because I've been working for the whole year, constructing the whole installation within my confined space of my studio. Um, and I was thinking about everything possible that might happen. And I was uh, measuring distance of objects and everything. But when I installed everything, all the components were integrated within the installation. And I really felt that I'm standing in the middle of the space, within the space, and I'm witnessing something that I'm not part of. I may have construct things in a certain way, but there was mark making and elements and movements and multiple temporalities of ephemeral gestures that happen constantly that I had no control of, and I'm not part of it, and that was so magical for me.
Mm.
That it happens. But I would say that I was appreciating also, like, even though I was mediating and I was sharing some images and videos on social media with friends, um, I was happy with the response, even though they weren't there. Like, I was really happy um, people shared some sort of a felt experience that was beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, thinking about too, the way you have created that installation so that it's site specific, which means even like for whatever you do for the Nuit
Nuit
installation,
Blanche.
yeah, Nuit Blanche, it's not going to be the same because the space will be different. And so those gestures that happened, that as much as you prepared, you couldn't have anticipated because of the potential variety of the space and the movement within it. That happened once.
Absolutely.
And there's something so like about that. And
Mm,
it's like so real. It's so real. And in our age of like everybody's recording everything all the time on their phone and all that, like that like human denial of death, basically. I don't know how else to put it,
mm.
like impermanence. We work so hard to like never let anything be impermanent. And it's like, there it is. There it is. There it is, you know?
I think the more you are embracing these thing, the thoughts about death, your life become more alive. I think that's these two, and just connected.
Mm.
When you are recognize and acknowledge your mortality, your experience became almost immortal because you really understand that this very moment that will never come back. And so I think that we all want to live forever, but I think that when you are able to kind of maintain um, some sort of a subtle awareness toward your journey as from the beginning to the end, I think you can make this now moments more meaningful.
Yeah.
Because,
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess I just really appreciate your description of that experience because even though obviously I'll never see those gestures, like hearing your reporting of them just really like lets me have that experience actually of like, oh, remember,
hmm,
you know, so beautiful. It's really
thank you.
beautiful. Yeah. Um, I can keep going through the images and I would
Yeah.
love for you to.
Yeah, this is, for example, this image that you see now is a screen, one of the vignettes of the screen dance works that has been recorded at Gales. and has
Mhm.
returned.
Okay.
Yeah, this is another sequence. These are just like stills from the videos that was ongoingly. Um,
So you can see like it's almost like as if in the olden days with frames and then film. Yeah.
Yeah, I have, if you've been browsing my website, you could have recognized that I have the tendency to work with a sequential work and to work with multiple images, multiplicity and repetitions. You probably notice it within my drawings as well as within photography. Always this, there's always has to be one image and another image that informs. And so for me, it is a way to think about dance in flattening dance. So
Mm,
thinking about dance in 2 dimension.
mm, mm. You know, since you did mention that the other performers were all female, I have heard someone describe the feminine as multiplicity. I don't know how you feel about that or react to that, but I'll just put that out there.
Um,
You don't have to.
no, but I would. What comes into my mind is, the Elizabeth Groth. She's a scholar and she's geographer, and she came up with the term the paradoxical space, specifically talking about women, female, who are um, located themselves in several places at the same time as well. Like we are, what is it? The multiplicity can be multiplicity of identity. I mean, female, I'm a mother and I'm an artist and I'm an educator. I'm probably other things. Um, and we move from one place to another and in which to one identity to another, which are not the same. There's always this kind of I don't want to say conflict, but it sometimes could be a radical difference between different identities. We carry multiple identities. Um, so I guess I think when I think about multiplicity, I think about multiple identities. And I also think that specifically today with the virtual world and the ability to be able to multiply ourselves within the digital, if you think about the virtual VR, I think that's also provide a new platform for people to explore their identity and become fluid.
Yeah.
Um, um, just completely fluid within their appearance, gender, everything. They can be they can split their selves into multiple selves.
Yeah. 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 I mean,
I
I even
guess
think about, are you Moroccan? Are you Israeli? Are you Canadian? Are you Jewish? You know what? Which one? All. You know, why not all?
yeah, I am all like I'm always I live in between these worlds, but there's always an inner a dialogue and a conflict because as we get older and I mean we carry um, opinions and we get we become knowledgeable, we educate yourself, we go through processes of learning, but most importantly we go through process of unlearning,
Mm,
and so all these goes in correlation with who you are and how you identified yourself with what you identified yourself with,
yeah.
um, and so
Yeah.
yeah, it's an ongoing dialogue.
Yeah. I mean, and that's sort of the beauty of it that also I see in your work is like that was like maybe even that sense of like, in a way, there's nowhere to land. And that's not a bad thing. That's not a bad
Mm.
thing.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Mm.
It's a nice way to put it. Another image from the from the installation. Again, and in this installation, there is, because each projector has a different set of screen dance works and they're running in a loop, from cycle to cycle, they lose the loop is changing. And so as a result, every time there's the projection from one side to the other side meets something else. It's never the same and never repeated the same. It's always changing. It's like, yeah, it's always constantly changing. So in this particular image, you can see where there's a long wooden rectangle panels that are leaning on the wall. And these panels, I've been using them in my studio for a long time for temporary gestures and for backdrops. So they're almost like a life-size palimpsest of gestures. They're not painting, but rather there are surfaces that kind of that archive beginnings and endings of paintings, of marks that came along. And so the projection is falling on the panels or in between the panels. This is specifically a recording that I actually recorded in Morocco in the Sahara Desert in a tent. So what you see, this kind of a rectangle, it's a tent, and I'm entering the tent, coming in and out.
I love that the panels are like this collection of past, and they kind of come along with you. That's what I heard. Is that correct? Like they sort of come along with you and they enter into things. And yeah, I love that.
I have many of them. I think I have now probably around 15 panels. There are 45 by 85 wood panels that I carry with me, and every year I get another one. And now I've been thinking about them as chapters, and they look like really just like something like being erased and painted over and over again. And I don't know, I see them as archive, like a tangible archive of gestures. And you know, even though my work, it became more complex in terms of the media, I still think about painting a lot, and I do see myself as a painter, and I'm interested to continue this process of forgetting what painting is. So my painting process is unlearning processes of painting. So this is my way of painting. It's to think about painting that is not ended up being a painting landing on a surface. Again, landing. There's no landing. There's always moving from one place to another. And so I think these panels, I would say that these panels are my ongoing question about painting. That I don't have the answer yet, but I'm completely engaged with it for a long time, still waiting for answers to come.
Well, may you never have an answer. You know, I guess it would be great to watch the video again after hearing you speak about the project more. And this one brings up for me something, and you know, I feel like we could talk all day, but I also want to be mindful of time. So maybe we get to talk again.
I would love to. And the next time would be like a really cozy with pajama and coffee.
Yes, because I feel like almost everyone I've interviewed, I'm just like, okay, we'll have to do a second one. But you know, looking through, and I would invite everyone to go to your website and look through all the older work as well, because each one of your projects is so rich. But I wanted to ask you about color, because you know we've spoken about gesture and line, and I see you use color very judiciously, and I wonder about your thinking around color.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I'm just looking at this. You know, first, you know, sometimes when someone asks you, what is your favorite color? And I say, I don't have a favorite color. I love all the colors. It depends what is the thing. I mean, if I wanted to have my tomato, I want my tomato to be like really red. And I like the sky this way, or I like certain things that have a certain color. Um, yeah, I'm a big fan of color theories. I've been reading Kandinsky and Paul Klee and many other theories and about colors. Um, and I think, obviously, for painters, color is something that is an ongoing um, contemplation. Um, and colors is, I think, in many ways, I consider colors as almost like a choreographic devices
Mm.
um, in which color, um, and again, this is within my subjective world of what the color means to me, but I have the tendency to develop a whole conceptual idea or constellation of meanings around a particular color. And this is something that can go over long period of time. And so it becomes a choreographic device.
Mm.
Um, and also when a color meet color, um, there's exchange of energy, there's a certain dialogue, there's a very particular meanings that I'm always attuned to.
Mm.
So I think as I go further with my work, especially the past several years, I find myself meditating on a one particular color.
Mm.
So my work became less of like colorful, but it became a particular color that I'm delving into. And I'm sure you know that you probably noticed the blue in the past year. I've been working a lot with blue when I traveled to Morocco. I absolutely, I absolutely love the book of Kandinsky, Vasily Kandinsky. I highly recommend this book. It's called The Spirituality in Art. He wrote this book beginning of the 19th century. And this book is the most beautiful meditation on colors. And it became almost like a Bible
Mm.
uh, for me. It's always beside me. And even after so many years, I still go back to it and for questions, for answers. Um, and it's so rich
Mm.
and yeah, I also was interested about Paul Klee's work because Paul Klee was thinking, well, he has a synesthesia, which is a kind of phenomena in which he can hear sound. He can hear colors brings
Yeah.
sound. Um, so a combination of colors with forms and um, yeah, so this is kind of a relationship I have with colors.
Yeah, well, it makes sense. I mean, yeah, that place and color begin to have an association, like Morocco and blue, and I don't know. I just think about having the opportunity to go to, say, the south of France, and then seeing again like Corot or Cézanne's paintings and being like, oh, now I get it. you know? Yeah, and light, color is light. And so when you're in a different place, actually this morning when I woke up and looked out at the bay, um, the particular way that the water looked, the color of the blue this morning, I was like, okay, spring is here. That,
Hmm.
that is a springtime blue of the water that I hadn't seen until today, this morning.
Mm.
So, mm.
I also like this idea of seeing the water every day and see the changes and the emotions it brings.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So beautiful. Mm. I mean, when you show the video, I mean, obviously your whole work is like layer upon layer upon layer, but it was really like brought home and then the entering and Yeah.
I can put the video again, and I can
Yeah.
show particular things that I wanted
Okay.
to talk about. So I'm just going to do it like this, and I think my video is open. Oh, here it is. And can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna, so you see this panel over here now, you see what's happening here. Uh, I'm gonna, okay, this is a traveling right now. Uh, there these elements are traveling on the wall. This is a response, the panel, the holographic panel is what's rendering these
Okay.
gestures that comes and goes, that I have no control. And you can see that it's in correlation with the holographic panel.
And those are
Can you
the
hear
panels
me?
themselves. I can't hear the sound because of your,
Sorry?
I can't hear any audio from
Oh, I
the,
can hear you. I think I did something. Hold on a second. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Mm,
Maybe take out your
see.
headphones.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I can't hear you. Let's take it down. Okay.
Yes. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
I
Yeah.
couldn't hear you the whole time. But
So you,
yeah, I couldn't hear audio from the.
mhm.
So, yeah.
So this is also drawings. These are the marks that comes in and out. Now, yeah, this is something that happened in between the panels. So you see the background of these panels. There's kind of a red wooden panel superimposed on the panel. So many of the forms kind of fall in between the panels. Yeah, that's what I meant by, and now you see there's another video that's happening at the same time with another video. Yeah, I'm going to stop here to show the panels. And there is a light bulb sitting behind this panel over here. And this light bulb is changing the color softly every 90 seconds. So it's not something that you are noticing right away. It takes 90 seconds to change the whole transition from one color to another color. So the color is constantly changing in space. So if you are in space for like several minutes, you will notice that you almost like you are in a different place every time the color is changing. Yeah, this is again, you can see the wooden panel, and what's happening here, it's a reflection, not from the projector, it's rendering from the edges of the panel.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I'm just going to do quickly because I just wanted to show here now that you see all these drawings over here. Yeah, this is the panel. This is the Mobius. This is the moving image sculpture, and then there is a kind of a blue painting, just sitting there, leaning on the wall.
And I feel like you go through cycles of almost like day and night and more like black and white monochrome, and then the color comes in, and yeah.
Yeah, I was, maybe because I was on my own, I could play with the light a little bit, but most of the whole installation is based on light. Light is definitely a material installation.
So
Light mostly through the projectors, and yeah, it was a lot, but I wasn't interested to make the space completely dark, but it was kind of like in between.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So beautiful. Thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
sharing that. Well, maybe I feel like there's like a million more things we could talk about, but maybe we'll stop here, and if it's okay with you, and then say, let's do this again.
I would love to.
Yeah, thank you
Thank
so
you
much.
so much for giving me this opportunity to share my work and talk about myself and my practice.